The CEO in the hoodie, a story of power, prejudice, and redemption. I'm sorry, but we can't just hand out cash to anyone who walks in, said branch manager Melissa Crowley. Her tone soaked in condescension as she pushed the transaction slip back across the counter. Especially not amounts like this. Her words echoed sharply across the marble floor of Summit National Bank's flagship branch in downtown Chicago. Several staff members nearby turned to look. One young teller leaned toward her colleague, whispering just loudly enough to be heard. Yeah, right. She doesn't even look like she has that kind of money. The remark was followed by a wave of muffled laughter that rippled through the group. Standing silently on the other side of the counter was a poised, elegant black woman wearing a navy blue hoodie, dark slacks, and a well-worn leather purse tucked under her arm. Her face remained composed, dignified, but with each second, the humiliation deepened. They didn't know who she was, not yet. But they were about to learn. What they didn't realize was that this woman they mocked and dismissed wasn't just any customer. She was Dr. Vanessa Jordan, the newly appointed CEO of Summit National Bank. And in the next few moments, she was going to shake the foundation of the institution they thought they knew. That Vanessa's journey had started decades earlier, not in an executive suite, but behind a teller window much like the one she now stood before. 25 years ago, she had been just another fresh-faced employee in a crisp blue shirt with a plastic name tag that read Teller Trainee. She didn't come from privilege or connections. What she did have was grit, brilliance, and a relentless work ethic. She rose steadily: loan officer, branch manager, regional VP. At every step, she broke records, solved complex operational nightmares, and built a reputation for excellence. Along the way, she earned her MBA from Wharton, mentored dozens of young professionals, and turned around failing departments with surgical precision. When Summit's longtime CEO retired 3 months earlier, Vanessa was the obvious internal candidate. But the boardroom chatter hinted at something else: coded concerns about whether legacy clients would feel comfortable with a black woman at the helm. Despite that resistance, after a hard-fought vote, Vanessa was appointed as the first black woman to lead Summit National. Her acceptance speech had been clear: every client, every employee, every community we serve will be treated with the same level of respect and professionalism, without exception. But that wasn't just a promise. It was a mission. In her first few weeks, Vanessa noticed a troubling trend buried deep in internal reports. Certain branches, including the flagship downtown location, had disproportionately high attrition rates among customers of color. Formal complaints were scarce, but exit interviews hinted at something darker: subtle slights, unequal service, and a general feeling of not belonging. Vanessa decided to see it for herself. Disguised in everyday clothes, with her curls tucked beneath a cap and no designer labels in sight, she walked into the branch just after 9 a.m. She took a seat and watched. What she witnessed in those first 20 minutes validated her worst fears. The white man in a tailored suit was immediately greeted, escorted to a private office, and offered coffee. An elderly Asian couple was pointed silently to the waiting area without a smile. A young white woman in yoga pants was warmly asked about her weekend. A Latino man in janitorial overalls was grilled for multiple forms of ID for a basic check deposit. Then it was her turn. She approached the counter after waiting over half an hour, even though the branch was only moderately busy. "Good morning," she said calmly to the young teller, whose name tag read Chloe. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." Chloe's cheerful demeanor faded slightly as she looked at the slip. $115,000. That her eyebrows shot up. "That's quite a bit," she said, glancing over Vanessa's ID and then at her face as if to confirm it really belonged to her. "It's well within the daily limit for my account type," Vanessa replied evenly. Instead of processing the transaction, Chloe flagged over Jason, the senior teller. Tall, broad, and with a practiced scowl, Jason loomed behind Chloe and stared Vanessa down. "Is there a problem?" he asked, not to his colleague, but directly at Vanessa, loud enough to turn heads throughout the lobby. "No problem," Vanessa said, placing her debit card on the counter beside her ID. Just a withdrawal. Jason picked up her ID and card, examining them slowly. We've been seeing unusual activity on these types of accounts, he said, with a loaded tone. What types of accounts would those be? Vanessa asked, her voice calm. Jason didn't answer. Instead, Chloe was instructed to pull up the transaction history. That's when another staffer, Brian, leaned over and whispered, audibly, probably one of those fraud cases. Or maybe laundering. Vanessa stood motionless. Jessica, the branch manager, was summoned. Dressed in an immaculate navy blazer, she walked over with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged. She didn't introduce herself, didn't ask for Vanessa's name. Instead, she launched into her line of questioning. $115,000 is a substantial amount of cash. May I ask what it's for? It's for my personal use, Vanessa replied. Her tone clipped. Jessica's face hardened. Ma'am, I'm not sure this amount is appropriate for someone like you. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the check cashing service on 7th Street. There it was. Vanessa said nothing. Instead, she reached into her purse and calmly retrieved her phone. Across the room, Jason nudged Brian and snickered. Chloe looked down at her shoes. Yes, this is Vanessa Jordan, she said into the phone, stepping slightly away from the counter. I'm at the downtown branch. Yes, I need you here immediately. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Who are you calling? She asked, trying to regain control. But Vanessa had already turned away to eye in the executive suite of Summit National's headquarters just a few blocks away. COO Denise Carlisle sat upright in her chair, recognizing the voice instantly. Give me every customer complaint from the downtown branch for the last year, she barked to her assistant. Pull up the security feed. Now. Within minutes, a live stream of the branch was playing across the conference room's massive screen. The board members sat frozen as the footage revealed the full extent of the discriminatory behavior in progress. Vanessa being questioned, delayed, insulted. That's our CEO, murmured one of them. Yes, Carlisle confirmed grimly. And we're about to be very, very public if we don't act now. Back at the branch, Vanessa remained composed. The seconds ticked by, and then the doors burst open. Denise entered like a tidal wave. Heels clicking, eyes blazing. Stop everything, she ordered. Jessica turned, startled. Excuse me, who are you? You don't recognize your own COO? Denise snapped. Do you have any idea who this is? She gestured toward Vanessa. Jessica looked from Denise to Vanessa, confusion deepening into horror. This, Denise said, her voice rising, is Dr. Vanessa Jordan, the CEO of Summit National. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Jessica's mouth opened, but no words came. Chloe visibly recoiled. Brian turned pale. Jason swallowed hard. The room was silent. Vanessa stepped forward, the air around her electric. Jessica, Brian, Jason, you are all terminated, effective immediately. No yelling, no drama, just power, spoken with quiet, irrefutable authority. Security escorted them out. Customers stared. Staff watched in stunned silence. Vanessa turned to Chloe. You showed discomfort. That means something. Starting today, you're on probation. Use this as a lesson and an opportunity. The following days were a whirlwind. The footage went viral. National news outlets picked it up. The board held emergency meetings. Vanessa led them all. She announced a sweeping $50 million equity initiative. Training, auditing, community outreach, and most importantly, metrics that mattered, not just profits, but fairness. Every branch was evaluated. Bonuses were tied to equity scores. Discrimination wasn't just a PR problem anymore. It was grounds for termination. 6 months later, Vanessa returned. No suit, no entourage, just the CEO in a hoodie, checking to see if her bank now lived up to its name. And this time, the staff stood up to greet her. Not because they feared her, but because they respected her, and because now they knew exactly who she was.